Hello, and welcome to the Hometown Heroes podcast for Sunday, April 1st, 2018. What's going on? Welcome to Season 2, Episode, I think 10 or something. I don't know. But I'm just going to call it Season 2 because anytime I just take a time off from doing it and not having a good enough excuse, I'll just say it's a season. That's what it is. It's a season. Taking time. How's everything been going? Everything's been going good over here, staying busy. Except Laura's over there sitting on her ass. Reading. I'm not going to do too much time here, but because we got a really good episode. We did an episode with Alex Hooper. Alex Hooper is a comic in LA. He's hilarious. He's got his new album just dropped. It's Pugs, Drugs, and Hugs. Hilarious. So you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, or on his website. You can also get his calendar while it's still early in the year, his Pug Yoga calendar. It's great. Dude's hilarious. We had a good time talking about Baltimore. That's where he grew up. And that's about it. I'm not going to do too much time up top. How's everything been going, guys? It's all right? Good. Great. A lot of rapes since the last time we talked. Seemed like every episode was about raping. It's not about rape anymore. A lot of kind of rapes. Still have a reality TV star in the presidency. It's great. It's it's all good. Things are falling apart. We'll be okay. Because we're all from somewhere. A hometown. This is the Hometown Hero Podcast. Thanks.
I got your picture, I'm coming with you. Dear Maria, count me in. There's a story at the bottom of this bottle, and I'm the pen.
All right, welcome to the Hometown Heroes Podcast with Joe Carl, Laura Abusaker, and today we have our guest, Mr. Alex Hooper.
Hello.
Fade this music out.
Yeah, dipping back to the pop punk roots.
Do you know who that is?
Was that Saves the Day?
It is not. It is All Time Low. Have you heard about them?
Low, yeah.
You have heard of them.
I like the early 2000s, like late 90s. I used to get down with all that stuff.
All Time Low. They are from Baltimore, Maryland. They are actually from Townsend.
From Towson?
Townsend, yeah, which is where your high school is.
Yes, Towson.
That's how we introduce this podcast. We bring in some local music. Just so you know, All Time Low, that name of their band is, they took their lyrics from a song called Head On Collision, which is by
Newfound Glory.
Newfound Glory.
Yeah, I remember
which,
that.
if you're a listener of Hometown Heroes, is the band we talked about on Michael Lenochi's episode, because they're from Coral Springs, Florida. So it all comes together.
Yeah, I'm learning already.
See? All right. Great. All right. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about Alex Hooper. He's from Baltimore, Maryland.
Hello.
The beginning of the podcast, I like to go ahead and get the plugs in at the beginning, because sometimes people listen and then, you get to where you're going in your car and you don't listen to the end. So let's go ahead and plug your stuff. What do you got coming up?
Please listen to my new album that just dropped on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Pandora, wherever you listen to music. It's called Hugs, Drugs, Pugs, and it's an hour of me doing stand-up, so please listen to that. If you live in LA, come to Crave. It's an all-night party I throw with comedy and music and all kinds of other fun stuff. And, yeah, go to hoopercomedy.com and see where I'm going to be.
All over the place. You got any coming up at Madhouse or anything?
I don't have any San Diego right now. I just booked Tahoe for a week in July, which will be great.
A casino?
Harrah's, yeah.
Nice.
There's the Improv up there. So I'll be there in July. I don't have any San Diego right now, though. Somebody just hit me up from down there that I need to come back, so I got to work on that.
Awesome. Well, maybe at some point after this airs, you'll be going to Baltimore, Maryland, and doing some shows back home, because we're going to talk all about it. You ready to learn some history?
Please, hit me with it.
Laura, hit up some history. We're gonna learn some timelines of the Baltimores. The Lords of Baltimore.
Lord Baltimore.
Lord Baltimore, do you know about that?
I know, of course.
All right, sweet.
All right, so starting way back when, in 1624, so this is getting us to Baltimore.
Yeah.
All right. So, England's Secretary of State, Sir George Calvert, announced himself as converted to Roman Catholicism and withdraws from public life. He received the title of nobility as Baron Baltimore,
Baron
Lord
Baltimore.
in the Irish peerage for the town of Baltimore, in the western half of County Cork, on the southern coast tip of Ireland, in the province of Munster. He will be succeeded by descendants of 5 more Lord Baltimores.
Lord
I feel like we need a...
Baltimore. Is that a
Fanfare.
Munster
Lord
cheese? Is that where
Baltimore.
Munster cheese comes from?
I think that's more German, perhaps, because
No.
this is Munster and that's Munster, although I'm not really a connoisseur.
There's an E somewhere in Munster.
in there.
Of NASA
Not
fame.
to be,
Moonster.
yes, and not
Comes
like the
from
Addams
the-
Family knockoffs.
Okay.
So many
It's
Lord
its own-
Baltimores.
I mean,
though.
there's a lot.
There were 6 Lord Baltimores, correct? A Baron
Yeah,
Baltimore.
followed by 5. So yeah.
That's, yeah. So that title was extinguished in 1771, but before then, in 1632, after an unsuccessful attempt to found an English colony in Canada, a
Who
second
wants to go up
charter
there?
to a colony was granted further to the south in a more temperate climate by King Charles I of England to Sir George Calvert. First,
Lord Baltimore.
you must say the full title, of course. This second grant is named Maryland for the King Charles's wife and queen consort, Henrietta Maria of France, and was laid out with straight but irregular and exact boundaries along the eastern and western shores of the Chesapeake Bay.
Just like Henrietta's curvy ass is what it was.
Irregular?
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, put it on the Chesapeake Bay.
Ew.
Baby!
I need to
Ooh,
see it.
Chesapeake Bay. B-A-E.
What's-
Get that old bay in
Oh,
there.
Bay.
Yep.
Bay, yep.
You
B-A-E.
All right. That brings us to 1634. The Ark and the Dove, which were ships of George's eldest son, the second Lord Baltimore, Cecilius Calvert's, the man who at this point would be the proprietor of Maryland, land on March 25th.
What is March 25th?
You might
Do you know what that is?
as.
The day Jesus was conceived?
I think in addition to that,
Isn't that right?
it's
he was
also
born on December 25th, so...
that math adds up on that. That's
Yep.
to be sure.
It's Maryland Day. I thought Jesus was a preemie. It's Maryland Day, right? Did you not know that?
I did not know that.
Oh, I
no
figured
idea.
that was
I
a
was
day that
hoping
you guys.
they
That
would,
was
like,
one
No,
of those.
they-
Parade in the streets.
Yeah,
and-
we all just run naked through
Yeah.
school. We're all just throwing streamers everywhere. It's Maryland Day.
I mean,
everybody.
that's what I would.
No, I had
well.
no idea what.
I love it when
I didn't
we
know there was a
teach.
Maryland Day.
I
That's
love it.
unfortunate. All right. Well, so for the next March 5th.
Yeah,
Yes.
March 25th.
It just passed, though. I mean, like if we had just done this a week ago, how am I going to remember this for next year?
We'll remind you. Don't
Thank you.
worry.
Please do.
yes, of course. Okay, so at that point, they brought the first European settlers and African slaves, because you can't have one without the other, to the new province of Maryland.
Yep, that's when they
Yeah.
came. The Lord Baltimores. They so this is Cecilius Calvert. This is you've had to have heard that name
yes,
before, right?
for sure. Calvert Street is a major street in Baltimore.
Exactly. What goes on Calvert Street? Is that like the
I don't know.
is that like the Broadway?
No, I don't think so. Like the major it's a major thoroughfare through downtown Baltimore, but I couldn't tell you what goes on there anymore.
Is that all right? So what? And I want to make sure we know exactly where you grew up. Did you grow up in Townsend?
I grew up
Townsend?
I grew up in Lutherville, Timonium, Cockeysville, Towson. Like they're all basically within 10 minutes of each other. So
Okay.
yeah, they're all just suburban little towns 20 minutes outside Baltimore.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
how we usually do it. Usually we don't look at the entire city, but we're doing it today.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in downtown Baltimore though.
Nice.
So I love it down there.
All right, Townsend. Baltimore. Yeah, Calvert. Wait, where did I go? Where am I? Cecilius Calvert. That's the Lord Baltimore. He was the Lord Baltimore that Baltimore is named after mainly. And then we keep going. Lord Baltimore's fee for the charter.
As
that
if
one.
Cecilius Calvert wasn't a great enough name. He
I know,
also
yeah.
needs Lord Baltimore in there.
Cecilia.
all of them are just putting me to shame. Thanks, Abu Soccer. All right, so
You shouldn't have taken it.
I know.
I don't even want to know what your maiden name is because it must be horrendous.
yeah, it was just boring. All right, so Lord Baltimore's fee for the charter, which was legally a rental of the land from the king, was 1/5 of all gold and silver, found and the delivery of 2 Native American arrows to the royal castle at Windsor every Easter.
So they had to give all the gold and silver, or 1/5 of the gold and silver, along with 2 Native American arrows. That's insane. That seems like a weird tax.
Add-on.
Yeah.
Like,
why do you need the 2 Native
I
American?
want all the gold, all the silver. Well, 1/5.
Yeah.
1/5 is all I want. But you got to throw in 2 of those little cool things that you find in the dirt.
I just need to know.
Actually, they didn't find it in the dirt back then. Back then, they just took it.
They just, for sure. There was this,
it
was attached to a scalp somewhere.
That was like the original souvenir shop. Like, just...
Yeah. They were like,
and it's still there today.
The King of England's like, you know what? I want to hold on to these. They're going to be worth a lot one day. You know?
His grandkids have them on keychains now.
200 years from now.
Yes.
That's how British kings talk, by the way.
I think back then. Yeah.
Okay.
So the charter established Maryland as a Palatinate.
Keep saying
All right.
Maybe at the 8th pronunciation, one of you will get it right.
What it did was give Baltimore and his descendants rights nearly equal to those of an independent state, including the rights to wage war, collect taxes, and establish a colonial nobility.
And also have plenty of local fried chicken joints.
Totally.
Every single block has
crab for days.
That's it.
That's crazy. Like, this guy, basically, back then, you could just own. That was just like his backyard. Literally, Maryland was like his backyard. I'm going to put a bunch of people there, slaves, owners, make it happen. And then just bring me all the gold, and I'll give the king one.
And that's what's crazy. He's not even there.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, there were as many people in Baltimore as there are in this apartment building, probably.
That's true.
So, there's just like, all right, cool, all 12 of us just spread out, and we'll just, go wherever, try not to cross each other's paths.
Very true. So instead of actually going himself, he stayed behind in England to deal with a political threat and sent his younger brother, Leonard, which I hope they said Leonard, because Leonard is, come on.
You can't be a Leonard back then.
Who was like Cecilius Leonard. It's kind of like your
But, Father,
family.
I don't want to go take care of it. Send Leonard. Just send Leonard.
Poor Leonard. Lord Baltimore himself actually never traveled to Maryland.
I imagine Leonard just coming out of the closet. Did you have a cold base,
Well, is it my turn to come out?
Poor Leonard. All right, so he had 9 children. Of the 9, only 3, including Charles Calvert, who you said is a big shot, 3rd Baron Baltimore, survived to adulthood. Man, only 3 of the 9.
Yeah, back then you had to have 9, because you knew most of them were not going to make it.
You just die of the scurvy.
I bet they thought Leonard. I bet they had Leonard as an extra.
Yeah,
and
for sure. They were just like, look, he's not going to make it past 6. Just call him whatever the fuck we want. I don't know.
Totally.
They would have had a bunch that are like, oh, fuck, Cecilius actually made it? No, now we're stuck with Leonard, too.
That's right.
Leonard, don't screw this up.
He hung around. Later, her name.
What?
You typed this.
Oh, of the 9, only. Whoops. Anyway, he had a daughter, and later her name became the inspiration for the naming of one of the earliest counties to be erected as Anne Arundel County. Do you know that place?
Anne Arundel County.
Oh, you say it all like one, like Anne Arundel.
Anne Arundel.
Yeah, I would say Anne Arundel County.
Anne Arundel.
Anne Arundel County. Everything kind of when
do
you
people have what is
the Baltimore accent kind of it's pretty distinct. Usually a lot of things just run together. It's a little lazy. The main thing is you'll hear like the R in water and stuff like that. Like people say water instead of water. It's just I don't know. It's kind of a bizarre accent. It's not like super distinct, but if you watch John Waters movies, you hear it.
I don't hear it at all. It's funny whenever
you won't hear it in me for sure.
Well,
I
anyway,
don't have it.
yeah. Anyway, I've met a lot of people from DC. My brother-in-law's from DC. It's like I don't hear an accent with DC and Maryland, but it's more like just like the attitude. You know?
Yeah,
it's more of an attitude than an accent.
You won't hear it until you meet someone that really has it, and then you go, "Why are you talking like that?"
Yeah.
And it's just like, "Oh, because you probably never left Baltimore."
Do you hear it going back?
For sure. Okay. Like I did a podcast with a comic last time who's been a Baltimore comedian for 25, 30 years, something like that. And as soon as I walked in his house and we started talking, I was like, there it is. I love it. So
the only thing about Baltimore accents that I know is from The Wire, and that they say Baltimore instead of pronouncing the Balt.
A lot of when you get real lazy, you just say Balmer.
Baltimore,
Yeah.
yeah.
Balmer. Yeah, Balmer is a big one.
So it really is just running shit together.
Yeah, I guess it sounds weird if you're just like, I'm from Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, some people
You would have to be a Lord Baltimore
You
to
have to
say
be a
it.
Baron Baltimore or a Lord Baltimore, Duke with Baltimore. But yeah, no one's. You just I'm from Baltimore. I just say I'm from Baltimore. But the average person there is like, I'm from Baltimore.
Yeah.
From Baltimore.
And another thing in The Wire is that I remember them saying police. And so, is that something Nora?
Police. My dad says that.
We
so-
are police. I remember they would say we are police instead of like we are the police. I never understood that, and they never explained it in it. That was my one gripe with that show. Explain that.
That's your one gripe.
Everything else, I mean, it's a
Yeah,
masterpiece.
I was gonna
but-
say that's a pretty small gripe.
Yeah, exactly. It was a great show.
Were the writers local?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the whole
there was. It was a former detective and and the beat writer for the city paper that created the show and wrote the show. So that's why it's so real. Is because
Yeah.
like they're all based in reality. All the facts and statistics are all like it's crazy how accurate it is.
Hands
it's
down,
nuts.
one of the best shows.
It's awesome.
Series.
We didn't watch it until like 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, that's even better then.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was really
nice.
good because you realize sometimes our decades get mixed up because like the 2000s, it's just all like, oh, it goes 80s, 90s, 2000s, but you forget that there was a 2000s and then the 2010s. And so looking back at it, the fashion in the 2000s was very distinct. A lot of thick coats, a
Yeah.
lot of thick shirts, I mean.
They had beepers, pagers. that
Oh, yeah.
were-
pages,
Yeah,
sure,
a lot of those
course.
post 9/11 stuff. Yeah, it was great. All right, keep on going. Had 9 children.
So back here, we're back with Cecil Calvert. Died in Middlesex, England, on 30 November 1675. He was succeeded by his son and heir Charles Calvert, 3rd Baron Baltimore. All in all, there would be 6 Baron Baltimores.
Baltimore.
But, as you can imagine, after almost 150 years of being governed by a lord in tights across the Atlantic, the people of Maryland, along with all the other colonies, had had enough. Enter.
The American Revolution.
And after that war was all said and done, in 1776, Maryland sends last royal governor Sir Robert Eden, under Lord Baltimore's proprietary government of Henry Harford, illegitimate son of Frederick Calvert, 6th and last Lord Baltimore, packing to England.
It's funny, like literally every one of those names you say is a name of a county in Maryland.
That's what I was gonna ask
Yeah,
you.
like Harford County, Cecil County, Frederick County, like they're all represented.
Is there an Eden Street?
Probably somewhere.
What's Hartford County like?
Harford County?
Yeah, I would love to know.
I don't know it that well. I mean, I think it's fairly rural, pretty just, residential, small, like nothing too much. There's no reason to go there unless you already live there.
I love that because it's named after Henry Hartford, who would have been the 7th Baron Baltimore.
If it wasn't for Leonard,
No,
Damn it,
if
Leonard.
it wasn't for George Washington's big old dick just kicking them all out, you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
it would have been,
yeah.
that was the
Sorry,
end of it.
Bye.
I thought
Yeah.
you literally meant that, and I wanted to hear that story. So,
Well, yeah, George Washington won with his penis.
yeah,
If you were the first president of this country, you'd like to swing your dick around.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
monuments. Speaking of which, the first George Washington monument, not in D.C., it was actually in Baltimore.
I know exactly where that is. I used to skate it.
I was gonna say,
I used
yeah.
to, I used,
Some
I used
J's
to
on
wax it up and skate it. So
used to-
sorry, GW.
G-Dub's wiener got waxed and skated on.
Bye, Alex Hooper.
That's what you get
We're
for
here.
telling lies about your cherry trees.
That's right.
Because you know what? That whole story's a lie.
It's
The
true.
whole story's
Isn't it?
about the whole
Yeah.
story's about not lying, and the whole story is a fucking fib.
And that one,
Who came up? Like, where does that even just let's make a fable of the president? I just don't.
something to tell first graders in the 1800s, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think
They
you're
told
right.
kids insane things all the time.
I mean, they still do, to be honest.
I
I was
feel
a
like,
teacher
yeah.
in the South, I'll tell you.
It's true. It's true.
To not teach in the South anymore, that's for damn sure. I'm teaching out here now, so.
No, I love that Harford County is somewhere that no one really cares about because he was the illegitimate child of the 6th Baron Baltimore.
So it's kind of perfect. It's
Yeah, he
kinda-
was a bastard child. No one. Yeah, he kind of. Not only was he not blood of the barons.
He was Jon Snow.
Yeah. Yes,
Oh.
exactly. It was Jon Snow. If Jon Snow did nothing good, ruined it. All right.
How much of the history that we just shared did you know already, if any?
Very, very little. I mean,
Okay.
that I would have actually remembered very, very little.
Because that was pre-Maryland, really.
Yeah, and I used to,
Before-
of course, we like watched videos and stuff in elementary school and
Right.
middle school of like, here's the history of where you live, everybody. But like, you don't. Most of that stuff doesn't really retain with you.
Why
you know?
would it?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, but now, I mean, I'm just gonna be thinking of Leonard all the time. My dad's best friend is named Leonard, so
Perfect.
yeah.
I hope you find a connection there. I really do.
I think I already did.
I wonder what happened to Leonard.
I know. I feel like we need to follow up.
There's not much on Leonard. That's the thing.
As there
Autoerotic
would not
asphyxiation.
Yeah,
probably.
he got to Maryland. He was like, "Whoa, this is much better over here." I don't know why he keeps switching his accents from New Jersey.
Yeah, I like when he was like,
That's-
this guy.
yeah.
This is the good Leonard.
That's how I picture Leonard. For
Let's
sure.
just go down to Annapolis and form a new city. Now it's turned into Bill Cosby a little bit. New city. They say that the new Maryland is gonna be great.
All right. So, moving on from the history, here's some things that maybe you might be a little more familiar with.
Yeah, let's hear.
We're going to do a little round of Baltimore Charm City trivia.
Oh yeah.
So I have a few
about to fail
questions.
so hard.
Have a few questions for you.
You can do this.
Sorry, Baltimoreans, if I do miserably. All right, let's go.
All right. So Baltimore is known as a city of firsts. Which of the following was not a first Baltimore claim? A, first umbrella factory. B, first dental school. C, first taxi service. Which of the following was not?
I know for a fact that the first dental school was there. I know that one is real.
Ding. That's correct.
I know that one is real. I don't. Umbrella factory or taxi service. I mean, it seems like a great place to have an umbrella factory. Yeah, I'm going to go with the umbrella factory was also there, so the taxi service was not there.
That is correct.
Yes, yes. So
That
far,
is-
so good.
Done. Well done. Some other firsts. The first post office system was there. Railroad station. First civic monument to George Washington. And the first professional sports organization. Do you know which organization this was? Not one of your typical.
No, I don't think I'm. Is it like the cricket club
Very
Croakers?
close.
It's very close.
Yeah,
The Maryland Jockey Club.
jockey
Yes.
club. Oh yes.
Did you know any jockeys, or
No,
is that a thing?
I knew a bunch of people that rode horses because I lived. Where I lived, there were some very famous like horse farms nearby.
Perfect.
So, yeah, you know Pimlico's there.
Yep. Actually, George Washington was a big. He went to every Maryland Jockey Club race up
Really?
up until the American Revolution. Yeah, it was one of his favorite places to go.
That's real.
That's real. Just
right.
looked it up.
Okay.
It's not like he had the job to do as a president or
Hey.
anything like
He
that.
wasn't a president yet. He was just a chilling old general at that time.
All right, number 2. This one, I think you'll get in trouble if you don't know, because what I'm projecting is this is like the one thing you learn in history class.
Okay.
I also could be way wrong. In what year was the Great Baltimore Fire? I'll give you 3 choices.
18.
Nope.
Nope. I'm already done.
But listen, and then maybe 1904, 1914, 1924.
I'm gonna say it was 1914.
You were going with 1800s, which is closest to
1904.
There you go.
1904. Yeah, I don't.
Is that a big thing, the Great Baltimore Fire, that people talk about?
It's not
or-
the Chicago Fire, I can tell you that much. Nobody's writing songs about that one. So, I mean, I knew there was that, but yeah, I wouldn't have remembered
It's not
the
like
year.
a huge thing.
Call back to Joe Maurice's episode if you want to learn more about the Chicago
Chicago
Fire
Fire.
and learn about Joe Maurice's Chicago episode.
That's right. What I thought was cool about there's really bad things, which is one that it blazed for 30 hours and destroyed 1,500 buildings. But it was caused because of a mismatched hose joint, so it actually led to the standardization of fire equipment nationwide.
Hey, look at that. Baltimore
I mean,
changing the world.
if
I've
there's a
smoked a
silver
few
lining.
hose joints.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
Smoked a lot of hose joints. It's 30 hours is so funny because now we have like in California, it's like, oh, thing's been going for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's never going out.
I don't get. Yeah, I never understand those like fires that took down a whole city. I'm like, They not have. It's on the bay. Just go get some buckets of water, right?
Apparently, that's not how it works because we just had this worst fire right by the Pacific Ocean in
I
Ventura.
guess.
So
No.
I
guess
know.
there's more.
I don't
to it,
understand
not that
how
I'm-
fires work.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
That's what I think we've all learned,
I don't know what flames are.
I just know that we didn't start it.
and that's really what's most important. Start the
yeah.
fire. There you go.
Who's burning when the world's been turning?
Yeah, we got a word, Noah.
We didn't light it, but we tried to fight it.
Leonard started the fire.
Oh, Leonard.
Which, by the way, I just found out something about Leonard. He is buried somewhere in Maryland. No one knows.
We should go.
No one knows where he's
No
buried.
way.
The location of Leonard Calvert's grave has been lost to history. Archaeologists
For all I
believe
know,
it's
You know,
basically-
I've sat on it somewhere.
It's your backyard. I mean,
Yep, it could be.
imagine.
Leonard.
We need a
Leonard was the
detector.
true hero of
I mean,
Maryland.
really.
There should be a Leonard Calvert statue somewhere.
Well, let's
One
erect
day.
one.
One
When
day.
next time you guys are
He's
ready
got
to
a
get
hunchback and a
erect.
googly eyes.
I'm buried somewhere. It's got buttons to where you can give Leonard different voices. I don't know where I'm buried.
I'm here for it.
I would like a Russian Leonard, please. All right.
It sounds like a drink you would order. Boss had to hit me with a
Vodka
Russian
and
Leonard, please.
failure.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's the Russian Leonard.
All right. So up next, number 3. Which of these notable athletes is not a Baltimore native? A. Michael Phelps, B. Ray Lewis, or C. Babe Ruth? Not a Baltimore native. You can claim 2 of these all-stars.
Well, it's funny. Like I know Michael Phelps says because he went to the high school right next to mine.
Yes.
I don't know if Ray Lewis was actually born in Baltimore. I also don't know if Babe Ruth was born in Baltimore. But I'm gonna say, because we're going with born there, right?
Yes.
The answer to the question is born
Correct.
there. I'm gonna say it's Ray Lewis is our odd man out on this one.
Yep. He's a Florida man. He's
Yes.
Miami.
Bartow, Florida. That's
Yeah.
where
He's Miami born and raised.
Bam, we got the Babe. That's awesome. Babe,
Yeah.
Babe Tamore.
You didn't know this?
Babe
I figured this was something you knew because the Babe Ruth birthplace and museum is in Baltimore.
Oh,
That'd
Yeah.
be kind of cool to go to.
Yeah.
I probably have been to that.
great
at
I feel like
some
at some
point.
point in elementary
A
school,
field
you
trip.
definitely took a field trip there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we must have. I mean, but like at that time, I was so much more interested in just goofing off and just being an asshole on field trips and just trying to get away with whatever I could. You know?
Oh, dude, field trips were the best.
Oh,
you
dude,
know?
I was the kid that would like try to touch the painting when no one was looking. You know, they're like, "Stay back," and I'm just like, "Watch me touch it."
Totally. First kisses were always on a field trip. You guys remember that?
Well, I remember.
You were on a field trip when you were 19. That is insane.
Oh, yes. I do remember that the sly
Holding
handhold
hands,
on the bus,
handing hold,
Yeah.
which is really like pinky touching, and you're all sweaty, and you're like, "Ugh," but it's like on the way. Maybe that was just me, but on the way back to school,
Yeah.
because you kind of like make eyes at someone during the field trip.
Blowjobs, right?
Yeah.
Field trip
Full on,
blowjobs.
full on.
Yeah.
The
Talk to Jay Light about that one.
Oh, good to know.
Yep.
Why did Jay Light go to a Catholic school too? He had a priest.
I was about to answer that earnestly. Sorry, not earnestly, Leonardly. Sorry.
Leonard.
That's the new term when you're being stupid. You're being very Leonardly right now.
Quick note, if we have time later, you also have claim to Johnny Eckhart, which is known as Halfboy. I don't know if you're
Halfboy?
familiar
I've
with
never
him.
heard of this guy.
I never
before.
heard of Halfboy.
He was basically the most interesting thing besides Alex
Wow,
Hooper
just
that I
gonna
found to
call
come
him
out
a
of.
thing. Wow.
Halfboy.
Yes, he was a sideshow freak, but lived to age 70. Crazily enough, half a body.
Which half?
What,
Or was it like right down the middle?
It was just his legs.
just the legs, which
It
is
was
the
just
most.
the legs walking around.
I would have liked if it was like a vertical cut
Ooh,
down
yeah,
the middle.
just
So this is him. I mean, you can see here what I like the most, and we can move on. But I just thought, which was great, is that his one of his most impressionable moments was that students in the schoolyard would fight each other for the honor of lifting him up the stone steps to school, and the school windows were blacked out to discourage throngs of curious onlookers from peering in during his studies. So I didn't know if you knew anything about him, but I think I would have been like, I would have throngs of them.
I would imagine that's what you call his fake legs.
His throngs running
walking around on my
Oh,
throngs.
poor. I mean, the half man. Anyway, I just feel like I'm kind of a freak, so I would have connected with this guy.
Not that kind of freak. I mean, I don't think you have the upper body strength that Halfboy probably has.
To be fair, that's true. Okay, number 4. Which of these is legal in Baltimore? I feel like maybe you'll.
Ooh.
Okay, so can you take a lion to the movies? Can you be in a public park with a sleeveless shirt? Or can you sell chicks within 1 week of Easter?
Which one can you
Which
do?
one can you do?
I think you can. It just seems so obvious to say you can be shirtless in a park, but that's probably why you can't be shirtless in a park. I'm gonna
Sleeveless shirt in a park.
a sleeveless shirt in a park.
Yep.
No, I'm gonna say that you can. I'm gonna say you can take a lion to the movies. Can you take a lion? Because I've taken a lion to the movies, and if it was illegal, nobody ever told me.
I think your statute of limitations is up, so you're good, because they're actually all illegal. It was a trick question.
Everything's
I'm
illegal.
sorry.
You can't wear a sleeveless shirt in a public park in
You
Maryland?
can't. And I only included that
Or Baltimore?
because I just wanted you to know that next time you slackline
Yeah, for real.
in
Oh,
Baltimore,
yeah.
just be careful.
As someone who enjoys being shirtless more than I
Yes.
probably should.
I think you can
public
be
parks.
shirtless. You just can't have a shirt without sleeves
Oh,
on it.
fair enough. So you could
okay.
you could wear like
Much
Halfboy
better.
shirt and just wear like
Yeah,
the torso.
I'll call up John Eckert and
Yeah.
just be like, hey.
So
can
wait,
I-
you can't sell chicks 1 week away from Easter?
Cannot.
What kind of chicks are we talking about?
I know, yeah.
That's-
We're talking wire, like
Yeah.
pimp and hose.
What really goes down on Calvert Street? I don't know, but
I can't sell chicks. I wonder why.
probably because then people would breed them and then they'd get them in an Easter basket and then just
What?
chickens.
1 week away from Easter?
Yeah, of course.
You can't breed a chicken that fast.
But what
You got to get these chicks. We got to protect these chicks from the Easter crazies out there wanting to eat on.
As soon as they breed, the eggs just start hatching immediately. Just like pop,
it's
pop,
those
pop,
Easter
pop, pop,
chickens,
pop.
you guys don't.
We have to sell Easter eggs, all right? We can't go selling chicks a week away, and then that's going to take our bottom line here. All right?
To be honest, it made a lot of sense to me and was topical. And now that you guys are talking about it, I'm like, I don't know why you wouldn't.
We can't have people making their own Easter eggs. All right, we got to sell these things.
Fair.
Yeah, what's the Paws Corporation going to do? Just start selling chicks.
You know what? No wholesale marshmallows a week away from Easter either. All right, you can only buy them in piece by piece.
Yes. So next time you go back
Peep
home.
by peep.
Ah, you son of a bitch.
Sorry. Somebody had to do it.
Absolutely. I'm glad you did. All right. You've done pretty well so far. This is our 5th and final. So
He's done awful. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I've gotten 2 out of 4.
I was
Don't
trying to
be
pump him
polite.
up. It's fine. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I can take a beating. Trust
He's
me.
from Baltimore. He can take. They're rough and tough there.
That's
all
right,
right.
from what I hear. Okay, so which of these famous authors has a highly frequented resting place in Baltimore?
Edgar Allan Poe.
Boom.
Yes,
He's
didn't
got
even
it.
need.
I don't need choices on that one.
What I wanted to ask you about
If you're
is
funny, you're like, no, it's Lena Dunham. Weird.
not soon
She
enough
died.
in
No
my-
one cared.
What'd you want to ask me?
What I thought is kind of cool is that, one, it seems that people, when they come visit, bring a lot of cat treats because there's a lot of cats that keep watch over his grave. And since 1949, every year on the night of Poe's birthday, a mysterious stranger in black left a bottle of cognac and 3 roses on his grave, and just as mysteriously stopped in 2010.
Probably because he died.
He definitely died.
Like, from 49 to, he's
I was
60
just trying to figure out the year that you moved out here, and if
61
this was
years.
a family tradition. I was trying to piece it together. Wasn't sure if you were connected.
From 1940.
Yes, yes. I was
No,
hoping you had some connection.
I
there.
like the idea though that somebody has to like sneak up and be like in the
Absolutely.
stealth of night and just like wear all black and just be like, all right, I'm just gonna leave this liquor and
I mean,
roses.
someone was committed.
Yeah.
It was an emo kid in high school in the 40s, and then he was
Yeah.
like, "I'm never gonna grow up because I hate you, Dad." Dad, I do wear black and I like it. All right.
Meanwhile, the people that run the museum, they're like, it happened again. Every year.
Well, you did pretty well.
What,
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5?
Yeah,
That's not
60%.
bad.
Yeah, there you go.
60%.
I'm
It's
glad
not
you
bad.
figured out the percentage.
I'll
'cause
take
I
a
could-
60.
Yeah, all right.
I'll take a D
But
minus.
hopefully you learned something, which really, at the end of the day, is you can't replace
That's the more
learning,
important thing,
so.
right.
Is it true Poe was like never successful at all until after he died?
Yes, he was also impotent.
Ooh.
Wow.
I would write dark stories like that too if I was
Yeah.
impotent.
Impotent. Impotent means
Oh, he
you
was a
can't
very
get it up,
impo-
right?
He was a very impotent.
Yes. Yeah, he couldn't get it
He
hard.
couldn't get it up. Okay.
Yeah.
I always get impotent and what's the one where you just
where
don't
you
have any
can't-
blanks?
Yes.
Sterile.
Yeah, I get those two mixed up.
We
I
all got
feel
that
like
at
they
the
used
exact
to-
same time.
yeah.
All three of us said that at exact. Can we pinpoint the moment on the podcast, please, where all of us were perfectly in sync?
Sterile. Yeah. So he couldn't. Wow, he couldn't ever. Boy, oh boy.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like,
Alright.
think about his
He's
his works and.
There was like
You can't
literally
blame the guy.
22 hours a day were just spent just shaking it, going, "Come on, come on!"
Because that would be odd. Because you couldn't even like jerk it at all,
Nothing.
man.
Suddenly, the cask of Amontillado makes so much more sense. It's just like, you know what? I'm in my own prison. I'm gonna put this guy in a prison.
Really.
Oh man, I remember reading that they had like children's books versions of
Yeah.
all the classics. You remember, and it had pictures.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember reading that one when I was like
Where the guy's
8
getting
years
holed
old.
up in the wall and it's
Yeah, but it's
terrifying.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like a clown being
Yeah.
put in there. Because
The
remember he was a
jester,
Joker
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Creeped me out forever.
Yeah, but if you look back at all of his works through the lens of an impotent man, you can kind of forgive the guy. So
I mean, I had nothing to forgive him for. You know? I wasn't sitting here with all this Poe rage.
This motherfucker.
I swear to God, dude.
So again, I will go Leonard on his ass if he ever comes near me. All right. All right. Well, I think that's the history, right?
Yes.
That's the history of
Yeah,
Baltimore. Do you feel like you learned something?
For sure. Yeah.
You do? All right.
is there anything major we overlooked?
Yeah. What other historical things of Baltimore do you know about that we should have known?
I mean, there's certain things like in downtown. Like, did you read about the Shot Tower at all? Like,
No.
that's a major landmark in Baltimore. It's just this giant brick, like just cylindrical like tower where they used to drop the lead balls off of to make cannonballs. They used to drop them from the top to dry them, and that's a major like Baltimore thing. There's the city's got so much history. Like, there's a whole section of it called the Block, which is like where all the porn theaters and stores are and stuff like that. And it's literally a whole strip that was just from like probably the 30s on was just all there where all the dirty deeds happened in Baltimore City. And I used to go down there to get hot dogs because there was a really good hot dog
I
place
bet
down
you
there.
did.
My
You
dad
did.
used to think it was so funny that like because all the barkers are like, "Hey, you boys want to come in here?" And my dad used to think it was funny just to wait in the car and make me have to go walk by myself down that
You're
street.
like, just here for a wiener.
That's it. Just wieners for me.
do you got any footlongs, sir?
Please. Hey, boy, you ever seen a pussy? But what? I didn't want to say that word. It was like the first thing that popped in my head. I was like, oh, no.
Oh, this is
you're
a
on the block.
pussy-friendly podcast.
Okay, thank God.
Pussy positive podcast. There we go.
I like
Ooh,
it.
PPP. I like it.
Papa. Cool, man. All right. Well, that's the history of Baltimore. We want to hear the history of Alex Hooper
Uh-oh.
in Baltimore.
Here we go.
So take us back. Were you born in Baltimore?
I was born in Baltimore. I was born at Mercy Hospital.
Mercy me.
Mercy Hospital in downtown. I was born into a very artistic family on my mom's side. Everyone on my mom's side is very artistic. My dad's side, not at all. Everyone on my dad's side, for the most part, is pretty practical. And then my mom's side is like my grandmother was a professional actress. My grandfather was a concert pianist. Like my uncle's a graphic designer. Like they all did. My grandfather was a poet. Like there's all this kind of stuff like that. So I was encouraged to, be a performer from a very young age, but I was also a very angry, misguided human being from a very young age. I hated the world and everything in it. So, it was nothing about Baltimore that I hated. It was just like, that was just my background for everything. But
Is it too much encouragement of creativity and expression? What is that kind of like brooding artist
It's not. It wasn't even like for me. It was just like I hated myself so much. Like I didn't like. I don't know why. I mean I know a big reason why. A big reason why is because I had crippling eczema that was just absolutely terrible. So I was always uncomfortable, and I hated the way I looked. I hated the way I felt. So if you hate those things about yourself, you're pretty much going to hate everything. Right. So I didn't appreciate the city as much as I probably could have. But, I grew up in a middle-class family and, like, in a very, beautiful area. There's trees everywhere and parks everywhere. And it's the kind of place where, like, you can bike 6 miles over to like, your friend's house and just throw your bike in the lawn and nobody cares, Like, that was pretty nice.
Someone out there is furious right now. I did care.
I did.
I didn't want your fucking bikes there. This son of a... All right.
But I also I always wanted more things. I think I started seeking out drugs at a very early age. Like I was probably when I was 11, I started to look for the kids who were smoking pot. I'm like, where is it? I want to do it. I want to do it. So
is the drug scene in Baltimore, do you think it's comparable to, is there anything unique or?
It's the drug scene in Baltimore is a lot more. I mean, obviously, I wasn't when I was in high school when I was there, so it's different. But I mean, obviously, what most people consider the drug scene in Baltimore is not a drug scene I would ever want to be a part of. Yeah. That's when you get to that downtown, it's crack, PCP, heroin. At one point, Baltimore was the heroin capital, as far as deaths went, in the world. So I mean, we were really killing it for a short time. If you're gonna have it, be the best at it.
There is there's I wonder if there's a drug map because it probably changes now. I know everywhere now is just basically heroin because everyone's just hooked on opiates.
You guys were
right.
The hipsters. You guys were we were
we started. We were doing heroin before you had to start off with a prescription.
Exactly.
Right? But down in the South, it's all meth. That's the hard drug. Then there's the heroin beltway. I wonder if there's a map somewhere out there.
I'm sure there is.
My biggest connection to the actual downtown Baltimore came when I was 14, 15. I started rollerblading, aggressive skating, man.
Dude, I loved rollerblading.
Dude, yeah, it was great. It was so much fun. And I started doing that with my brother and my friends. And so we would go to downtown Baltimore at least once a week, and we would just me and a few friends would just skate around the city, and we would get to know the city that had always been, we were suburban kids. So now we get to go down to the city by ourselves and just see it in this urban playground kind of way. And just okay, where can we find a set of stairs to jump over, or a rail to grind down or something like that. And so I started to get to know the city and the more intricacies of its people while during that then. And I started to realize that I had been led a pretty sheltered life as far as what I had actually seen, because then all of a sudden I'm talking to homeless people all the time that are just at the spot that I'm trying to skate. I'm like, dude, get up, man, your blanket's on my fucking ledge. No, that's not true. But I started to get more in touch, I think, with the city, and I would be down there a whole lot more, and I loved going downtown and just it was alive down there.
That's cool.
It was also terrifying.
How did you commute there?
Either before I could drive, my dad would drop me off, or I'd take the light rail. There's there's public transit that would take you down there.
How old were you around this time?
14, 15, yeah. So I was really skating for 4 or 5 years. I was skating almost every day.
I always wanted to be able to do that, live in a city, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So,
right.
I could walk for an hour and not see another person from my place. So, I always thought it'd be cool to be able to, just go in a huge crowd of people in a city. You were close.
Well, that's what I wondered, too, because part of when we talk to people about this is just hearing different perspectives. And I was, suburbia, cookie cutter, you could pick from, 4 different house models. And the city I live closest to is Nashville, but we didn't really have light rail or any kind of public transportation. Yeah. So I couldn't really go into the city like that. So I always knew I wanted to live in a city because I wanted the exact opposite experience of what I had. So that's what I was going to ask you.
I always think about Ansley, too. Our kid, she lives,
right
right off the Sunset Strip. And
right.
It's just crazy to me. I couldn't imagine
And is she
growing
going to
up.
at some point crave like suburbia?
Probably.
You know? So that's
I would think so. I mean, my brother lives in the middle of Alaska now. Like he works in Denali. Like him and his fiance. He was like, I gotta get. Like he did from Baltimore, went to school in Philly, and was just like, I don't want to be in a city ever again. You
so
know?
the fact that you were kind of able to go back and forth in between like suburb, city.
I've always liked city life. Like
Yeah.
I like the layout of cities, and because of rollerblading, I've always looked at them differently. Like I look at the architecture, even though I don't really understand it, I would always look at it for my own personal use of just like, well, how can I benefit from the way this is planned out? But there was something about just like skating around the city with your friends that was very freeing and very just like, the wind's hitting you in the face and like you're just riding down hills, and it was a really cool way to explore a place that I had lived so close to my entire life but never really gotten to be a part of.
Yeah.
Did you have curfews or things like that?
Yeah, I
or-
mean, to an extent. Like, I mean, my
Because in
parents,
my mind, I'm like, man, like you.
yeah,
know,
it wasn't
freedom.
like, all right, 2:45 a.m.
Yeah.
guys, what are we doing down here? Like, no, I mean, I would usually have to. When I was in high school, I had to be home by I think 11 or midnight,
Okay.
unless I was in trouble, which was all the time. At which point I had to be home much earlier.
No, it's cool, man. Like I like the idea of. I think that's cool. Your parents were like, go out, just do shit. I'm trying to do that.
They knew
more.
how unhappy I was, and so they knew it was like that was one thing where I would finally be like, oh, I feel good, like I like doing this. I'm having fun all the time. It's good, it's obviously good exercise and things like that. I would get hurt every once in a while. I broke my wrist at one point. I fractured my knee at one point. So like bad things would happen every once in a while, but like they knew that I was much happier when I was rollerblading. My college essay was called "How Rollerblading Saved My Life." Like that's how into it I
great.
was.
That's amazing.
We all have our thing.
Do you still have some blades? Do you still go at all?
It's funny. I bought some yesterday, but only here's the reason. I'm doing a live show today where I'm gonna where you talk about a religion. It's called Choose Your Own Religion, and you pick like what you want to talk about as your religion. And my girlfriend thought it'd be really funny if I talked about rollerblading, so I went out yesterday and I bought a pair of rollerblades. Specifically, the fact that I'm gonna wear them tonight on stage, do a crazy bit, and then return them tomorrow.
Why you
Perfect.
return them? You gotta get back into the blades.
Because I can't. Like I know if I kept them, I would just start skating all the time. And I already do this. I already slackline. Like I can't get back into it. I don't want to be the guy that's just rollerblading around the city.
I want to be the guy that's rollerblading around the city. I think
saw
Do
him-
it for
I saw,
two.
I saw the West Hollywood rollerblader yesterday, so it's
what happened to rollerblading? Why did it turn into like a punchline?
that's exactly what happened. Like
it
literally,
totally
there
did.
were a few skateboarders that came in and basically said like, this is the gayest thing of all time.
Well, and
Why?
how it's
What's
portrayed
the
in movies,
difference?
it's always
It's
the
just
guy.
wheels. It's
yeah.
the wheels.
There's no difference.
Yeah, like
man.
when somebody at some point decided we're gonna give it a bad rap. Like that had to be a conscious
it's
decision.
like hockey.
Well, you know the joke. You know the joke. What's the hardest part about rollerblading? Telling your parents you're gay.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
That's what
they,
I'm saying.
some
It's
people
like-
say like that like helped destroy rollerblading in some
Yeah.
ways.
So
But I
weird.
think a lot of it was because anyone like I think a lot of skateboarders and people like that didn't like it saw it as like the Venice Beach style rollerblading,
Right.
where you're putting on neon and just trucking up and down the boardwalk all
Yeah.
day, just like, yeah, look at me, and not just like as an actual like extreme sport where
Right.
you would progress and practice and like do things. The thing is, what I never understood is I was watching rollerblading videos and skateboarding videos at the time, and rollerbladers were doing such crazier
That's
things,
what I'm saying,
such
yeah.
bigger things than a skateboarder could ever do. And still like anytime I met a skateboarder and when I was skating in downtown, like my friends and I would run into groups of skateboarders, they'd be like, oh, what's up, queers? Like they call us fruit booters and all these other stupid names.
booters.
Yeah, dude. Was it gays on? Or they would call us fruit booters. We would call them gays on trays.
Nice.
And
I love this
But they would
rivalry.
they would just be like, they'd be like, you fucking losers, look at you. And they literally could barely ride their boards. They couldn't do any tricks. They couldn't do anything. And we would just be showing them up, and they would still just be like, whatever, it's because you're fucking gay. It's because rollerblading's stupid. Like,
Which
it's-
is the go-to.
Of course.
Oh yeah, there was like a time like whenever we were
You could
kids,
dismiss anything just by
gay.
saying, yeah.
Oh fuck, it's gay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Damn
damn
it.
it. And that's what killed rollerblading.
Wow.
There is still like, I can't imagine, like every once in a while I try to find like a current rollerblading video, and they are still out there and stuff like that. But the fact is, like,
Good for them.
you don't see them
Yeah.
ever.
They should be in the X
Venice
Games.
And SoCal is the hub,
Yeah.
like of all of those kind of sports. So you think you would see them every once in a while, you just don't. They're just not out there.
I was
anymore.
always the rollerblader in that
In
video
3
game.
Extreme.
3 Extreme.
I was going to
Oh,
say.
yeah.
I always thought it was
I
the best.
loved
He was the best
rollerblading.
one
That was fun.
because he could do shit.
Okay, so you said that your curfew, unless you were in trouble, which was always, was that trouble in school, trouble at home, trouble
Everything.
at home because of school?
I wouldn't do my homework.
Okay.
I would talk back to my parents. I would threaten to kill myself, and I would do anything just to make everyone's life around me a living hell.
So what was
the
that
exact
high school?
opposite of the way I live now?
Right.
You know?
Very true.
Yeah. The
So
exact
what was
opposite.
that high school experience like then in
Yeah, how you went
you're
to-
saying Towson.
It's Towson.
Towson, and you
Towson.
went to
Yes.
George Washington Carver Center for
Carver
Arts and
Center
Tech-
for the Arts and Technology, named
So
after
an
George
arts high
Washington
school.
Carver. Yep, I went to an arts high school. That's the thing. Is like I was still acting up, even though I went to a high school for acting. Like
It
specifically,
seemed like a great high school.
It was an amazing high school. It was there were 9 different primes, as they call them, which are basically like majors.
It's a magnet school, right?
It's a magnet
Yeah.
school. So basically, there were 200 people that were accepted into each class for varying degrees of specialty, and some of them were artistic. Like there was music and theater and visual arts, but then there was also like business and cosmetology, carpentry, culinary. So if you knew that you probably weren't going to want to go to a regular college, or you didn't want to have some fancy career, but you're like, well, I can just get my cosmetology hours out of the way now. This will be considered my school. And then as soon as I graduate, I can basically just start working as a cosmetologist. Same with like carpentry, culinary, stuff like that. You gain all these skills. So if you don't want to go to a 4-year institution after that, you're like ready to go into the workplace well more equipped than anyone else of your age would
Yeah.
be.
That's great.
Yeah,
Could
so-
you specialize in the cotton gin or no?
No
Okay.
cotton gin. I mean,
That's
High
Harvard,
school, we
correct?
good? No.
Oh.
George Washington Carver,
What?
he was like
Did he do something with peanut butter?
He's the peanut guy.
Okay.
He was a
That's
city,
the
he was a
name of
city
the
planner.
I was going to say it was either peanut butter or cotton, and I took
City
a gamble.
Planters peanuts.
City planters,
Planters
that's
peanuts.
the one.
That's what I was thinking.
You just got me back for the peep line.
So you were in which academy?
I was in acting.
Acting.
I was in
I
theater.
wish I could have done that so bad. My high school, like they did a technical thing, but it was only for ag culture, like farming or welding. That's it.
Yeah.
Man, I wanted to do that so bad.
Even still though, I still was fucking around and
Right,
not
it
doing my
sounds like-
work, even though like that's the stuff I wanted to be doing. But yeah, I mean, I would have theater class every single day.
You
and,
said your
like,
mom was an actress, or
My grandmother was a professional actor. My mom went to school for acting, decided she wasn't good enough, and became a lawyer.
that's right.
But-
Yeah, both your parents were lawyers.
My
right?
mom and stepdad are lawyers. Yeah, my dad's a general contractor.
Oh,
and
right
then
on.
my grandmother was in the theater her entire life. Like she was doing one-woman shows into her early 90s.
That's
Nice.
amazing.
Like yeah,
in Baltimore?
In Baltimore, yeah. And most of my
Were you around her a lot?
yeah, for sure. My great aunt was a dramaturg and a playwright and started writing plays specifically for my grandmother to perform in. So they were they were sisters in their late 80s, early 90s. One of them was writing the plays and the other one was performing them. It was really quite remarkable.
What are their names?
Vivian Shub and Naomi Greenberg.
That's awesome.
Vivian Shub is my actual grandmother, and Naomi was my great aunt. But yeah, I mean, just remarkable women, just incredibly smart, very dedicated, and just proof that you never have to stop doing it if you love it.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, my grandmother did a one-woman show at 92 years old,
Nice.
which is just baffling to me.
In Baltimore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and she grew up in she was a professional actress for 70 years.
Did she ever
essentially.
venture out to New York or LA?
Yeah,
or
she
any-
did. She did New York a little bit. She got an offer to do. She had an offer to do this show that she ran in Baltimore. She had an offer to do it like the Pasadena Playhouse and stuff like that, but she turned it down because she just didn't want to be away from her family that long. Because most of my family, like at the time, they were all living in Baltimore. Like all my mom's, like their kids, like all pretty much stayed right in the area. Whereas now my brothers and sisters, I have dispersed all over the country.
Wow.
But yeah, so like growing up, like family was, it was pretty big.
Nice.
Yeah, I was
That's
lucky.
cool.
I was lucky in that sense. I just didn't appreciate it at the time. 'Cause I
So
was
were they
just-
happy then that you went into the acting? Even?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because they knew I just needed some sort of structure away from a traditional schooling, because they knew since 5th grade at 5th grade, I completely stopped doing my work. Like, I would turn in half-ass assignments, but I was very good at test taking. I was smart, and so I would get away, and I would continually, like, be put in these, like, better placement classes and stuff like that, and then I wouldn't do my work. They'd be like, if you don't do your work, we're gonna kick you back down to the regular class. I'm like, thank God, please, will you please do that immediately? I don't want to do this extra work.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing.
I don't want to do it. And then they started putting me in there was standard, honors, and gifted and talented. They kept putting me in gifted and talented, and I kept forcing them to put me at least back into honors because I was like, you're just making them do more work.
Yeah.
This is the last thing I want to do.
I was the exact same way. It was something about, like, as soon as you made me have to do homework or any kind of, like, actual, like, getting the work done, I was like, I immediately shut down. I'm like, I can't do it. It's something in my head. I was like, you're not paying me to do this.
I still struggle with it today. The other night, I had to force. I was like, Alex, you got to write the script. You know it. Your show's in a month. You need to write the script. And I just literally was like, yeah, just do it. Sit down and start fucking typing right now, because you know how much better it will feel once you're done. Mm-hmm. And of course it is. It always feels better when you're done. I dropped out of high school though.
That was my question. So did you graduate? Or?
I did end up graduating,
okay.
But in like my own way. Like I dropped out senior year, 3 days in senior year. I said, fuck this. I don't want to go anymore. This is that's true pure laziness. I am in a magnet school where all I pretty much have to do is like go to a couple different classes and acting classes. And I was still like, no, too much. I don't want to do it. So I went to this program called Home and Hospital where they bring a phone into your home and you do like a conference call with a bunch of other kids that either got expelled or had babies or were sick and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So for 4 months I did school over the phone, like a few hours every week, just like that, like which was insane and stupid. And so easy, and I just felt like I was getting away with everything. Like I was like, that was my parents' solution. I was just like, I just felt like I had won the fucking lottery,
nice.
And then they told me, the superintendent said I have to go back to graduate if I actually want a real degree, and I have to take 4 classes. My mom somehow, I told him I wasn't gonna do it. My mom bargained them down to 2, so I had to go to school my senior year, my second semester. I went to school every other day for 3 hours to take 1 English class and 1 acting class.
And what were the other kids doing? I would be like, this guy.
They fucking were just like, they didn't understand. They were like, why don't you just come back to school? And I was like, don't you understand how good I have it, guys?
I want to know what the other 2 classes she bargained you out of.
I don't even remember anymore. It was just, and then I did graduate. I think I must have, because I went to college on a big scholarship. So yeah, I ended
on a scholarship.
Yeah, and then I got a $40,000 scholarship to college.
You're like not making it easy for me to talk to my students about you got to persevere.
I know. I'm basically, I've always been very good at talking my way into things that I've wanted. It's what makes me a good comedian is that I'm good at speaking, and I'm good at getting my point across, and I'm good at making you realize that I'm right, I guess. Even
tricking you into thinking you're right.
Yeah, even when I'm not necessarily right. And all those times I was definitely not right. What I was doing was not okay. And for me, I just kept getting away with it. So I was like, well, look who's just playing the system.
Hell yeah. Dude, that's the best skill you can learn. If anything, you passed, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, you pass the main test, is get away with it.
Yeah, 100%.
So where'd you get your scholarship to then?
Yeah,
Point Park University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, and I got expelled from there too. But that was for accepting professional work. Like I did a pilot with MTV when I was supposed to be in a play. And I was
Wait a second. So you were going on an acting scholarship, and you guys weren't allowed to do professional stuff?
Not if you were in a school play.
Weird.
Only during the duration of the school play, or
because they said
it's just like athletes not being able to do professional work.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what it made me think of.
Yeah, exactly. So they were basically saying, like, my dean of my department was like, well, you can't go do this thing because you're in a play, and there's an unwritten contract that says when you get into a play here, you have to be in the play. I was like, first of all, there's an unwritten contract. Like, that's the biggest shit ever. So I had, like, a couple of my teachers that really liked me were like, why would you not want him to do this? Isn't that why they're in school?
Exactly.
Like, why don't we want to celebrate this if it gets big? Like, what if it gets big? Are you going to say he never went here?
Yeah.
And they were just like, it's too bad. Like, he made his choice. And so I was like, all right, bye.
That's so weird.
But then, I just basically had to I got expelled for 1 year. and then came back and had to finish what I had to finish. And I think I have a degree. I don't know if, to be honest, I don't know if I have any degree past seventh.
Yeah.
past
I love that
fifth
you
grade.
don't need to know.
You don't need to know.
I know.
Honestly, you know what I thought about the other day? All the jobs that I've had in the 10 years I've been out of college, like, I could have said I went to Yale.
Yeah.
There was a
I'm
guy
a
that
Yale
did that
I'm a
in
Yale
your
graduate.
office, right? You had a guy.
Oh,
that-
yeah, we did have a guy. We had a guy who he came in as an intern, an animator. He came in as an intern, wasn't getting paid, but he was going to school at UCLA, and he really wanted to learn from the best main titles house in Los Angeles in the world. And so he came in doing free work, and he was one of the best interns we had. And then at some point it was time, they were like, you know what, he's really good. He's actually a really good designer. Let's start giving him a wage, a small wage. Started doing that, did that for a year. We realized he was never going to school. He never went to school. He completely lied about that. At that point, he had gotten so good that we were wanting to hire him, and he was getting work at other places too for $500 a day. And we realized he never went to school. He learned everything he'd learned on YouTube and just by being in the office.
The thing is, at this point, the only because my girlfriend's sister's about to graduate get her master's in business school at USC, and I was like, you've already done all this school. What's the point of this one? And she's like, it's just networking. That's all it is. You're just networking with these people at a higher level of business than you're used to being around, so that when you go into the business world, you can just say, oh yeah, I went to USC, and then other people that went to USC are like, oh, she went to USC. Well, my son went to USC. That's all you're doing it for anymore.
And in some sectors,
That's
you
important.
still do need to do that. But
Yes.
for a lot of them, especially arts and acting and that.
Just learn how to do it.
Yes.
I mean, I
Work
wish
the system, baby.
I wasn't ready to be a comedian when I was like 18, 19, 20 even.
Yeah,
you
let's
know,
talk
I
about
wasn't-
that. How'd you get into it?
I wasn't, but I guess, I should have been doing it a lot longer. When I was in Pittsburgh, going to school, I became a tour guide on duck boats, the amphibious World War II vehicles. And I would do 6 1-hour tours a day. I would write my own jokes for the script and stuff like that. I was doing it with my friends. We were all silly, big, fat, funny guys. So we were just we were sharing jokes with each other, and we were just crushing these tours. And people would get off the tour and be like, oh, so what, do you go to the stand-up comedy club right next door when you're done? There was a stand-up comedy club directly next door to where the boats let off that I was next to every day, and I never went in there a single time.
Yeah.
I never even thought to go in there.
It wasn't a thing that you thought about doing, especially what year was that? Around 2006 or whatever?
About that.
Then and before, I remember thinking stand-up comedy, I loved it. I would watch it all the time. But to me, when we were younger, 90s and 2000s, stand-up comedy was something that you either did a long time ago, 70s, 80s, or whatever, or you had to be a character. You had to be the guy who's the black guy from the hood, or the country guy, Jeff Foxworthy. It wasn't something you just as a normal guy could do. It didn't seem like
I
it.
didn't think I could just walk in there and
Exactly.
be okay, can I do this? And it really, as much as I always loved it, I never thought about doing. I thought about doing it, just had no idea how. Then I moved out here to act because I was already in SAG. I joined SAG when I was in college. When I got expelled, I started doing I got in a couple movies that were filming there. So when my friends were doing school plays, I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go shoot this movie with the guy who just made Superbad. Bye guys, know. So I felt like a badass all the time.
Nice.
And then I moved here, and a few months later, I started comedy mainly because my friend pushed me into it. I saw my friend do a show at the Comedy Store, and it was a bringer show. I didn't know what that was. Nobody tells you, hey, you want to come to my bringer show? Nobody. Yeah. And for those that don't know, that's when you have to you promise to bring a certain amount of people so that they will, so that you can have 5 or 6 minutes of stage time. No joke. I see my friend at the Comedy Store. I'm so excited to be there. He's in the belly room. He goes up 27th on the lineup.
Yeah, exactly.
27th. And I sat there watching all of these people going this is who performs here? So few of these people are funny.
Yeah.
So few. What? And I don't know what, to me, that's just, these are the comics of the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
I don't know any better. So I'm sitting there thinking I think I could do this. I saw that moment of if these people are doing this, I can definitely do this. And that's what got me started.
That's cool. So you knew you wanted to do something with comedy, you just weren't sure what that was going to be. And
I knew I wanted to be like a comedic actor.
Right.
I
that's
wanted
what
to
you
do.
thought your
Right. I wanted to be
was,
like a Chris Farley type or
Yes.
something like that. But then I never thought about doing stand-up as the vessel to get me there. And then when the first time I did it, like literally I got booked on a show, like I'll bring a show as well. The guy's like, all right, cool. You can do a show in 2 weeks. And I was like, all right, fine. So 2 weeks I wrote 6 minutes of material. I just practiced it, hairbrush in the mirror style, like time and time again, got that thing so down, like just like rehearse, go. And the first time I did it, I was like, oh.
Did it go well the first time?
Of course. Everyone goes well the first time.
Yeah. And then you have a year
and then
of
you
shit.
eat shit as many times as you can.
Why is that? What happened?
I think a lot of times people give you the benefit of the doubt. Like this guy brought me up, it's his first time. And
Yeah.
like I clearly wasn't terrible. Like I've
But the confidence. You had confidence the first time, right?
I definitely had some confidence because I'd been an actor for so
Yeah.
long. So I definitely went out there with some confidence. I spoke way too fast, but other than that, I was a funny person and a decent joke writer. So even for a first set, like my 6 minutes was actually not terrible. Like, I mean, I've gone back and like listened to it a few times.
I wish I still had mine. She was on the phone in my pocket the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I still had it. I remember when I got off stage, it was at the Comedy Store at the Potluck, first time ever, 8 years ago. And I remember looking back, realizing how big of a burn this is, but not thinking at the time, like, oh, nice. Because the 8 people in the crowd were actually laughing. And I get off, and Benji, if Layla gets up there, he's like, oh, wow, you guys actually thought that was funny? All right, coming up next. I was like, yeah, they did. They did think it was funny.
That's how that used to be, man. That's how Potluck always was. I never went because of that. I was like, I don't want to just get made fun of. I don't need to be in this mean-ass place.
Yeah. Well, hell, that means you came out here, you did comedy, and then, how long you been doing it? About 8 years?
Comedy?
10 years?
9.
9.
Just at 9.
Yeah, I knew it was around there.
So what from your hometown or growing up or Baltimore, what did you take with you? What
I think
shaped you?
I think there's a little bit of a rawness and a fearlessness to me that I developed from living in that city for so long, and I think also from just how I viewed myself. Like I was always very protective of myself. And then I think when I learned to open myself more and just accept that this is who I am and I'm a beautiful person just like everybody else is, that I really started to be more in touch with my emotions and be more vulnerable on stage, but I still had a fearlessness and a toughness from like growing up in Baltimore and having to defend myself all the time from getting made fun of that I think really resonates in my stand-up. I mean, it definitely does in roast battles. That's the one I was always like, I knew how to fight people off when they were making fun of me. Mm-hmm. Like I knew how to verbally just dissect.
You or me. It's you or me. And
that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna punch you. I've never been a violent person, but I will verbally eviscerate you if you go after me. And that's what I used to have to do all the time growing up. And so roast battle just seemed like a perfect vessel for me to be able to do it.
Hence, how many titles do you have? How many roast battle championships do you have under your belt?
Oh, I don't know. Like
I was a reigning champ.
Yeah, I was a reigning champ for like over a year.
Yeah.
I got to do it on TV a few times and stuff. So
Comedy Central.
Yeah,
well,
baby.
From Maryland to rollerblading around the city to Broad Street.
The real Lord of Baltimore.
Coming out here, shedding your inner Leonard, becoming roast battle champion. And that's it,
Pug
man.
yoga, all that good stuff.
Pug yoga. Yes, from Leonard to yoga. That is the story of Alex Hooper from Baltimore, Maryland. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me, you guys. This was a blast.
Hell yeah,
Good
dude.
time.
All right. And one more time, you can catch Alex's album, Hugs, Pugs, and Drugs.
Yeah, Hugs, Drugs, Pugs.
Hugs,
The easiest, go to hoopercomedy.com.
Hoopercomedy.com.
You will find everything on there.
Nice. Listen to it, Spotify, iTunes, everything. Cool, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.